We should be prepared with our own response mechanism to deal with any such situation which is created for us on the borders. And I can my belief is that Pakistan is strictly remains highly unsatisfied with the rapidly improving situation in Kashmir, and I'm afraid there are elements within our country also, and there are elements in Pakistan who continue to believe that Kashmir is a powder keg which can explode.
Hello and welcome to the Gist on Strat News Global. Good evening, I'm Surya Gangadharan. Welcome to another edition of the Gist. This evening, we are going to look at a topic that may be a hit with some of our viewers. We're basically focusing on Pakistan and its nuclear strategy. So, Pakistan and nuclear strategy both. Briefly, our Western neighbor has unveiled some changes to its nuclear doctrine that, in the view of experts in India, could be highly destabilizing. So, exactly what are some of these changes? I have a small graphic coming up. The changes are broadly in line with Pakistan's quest for achieving full spectrum deterrence, um, presumably against India, of course. This would cover horizontal deterrence, meaning all three services would have a variety of nuclear weapons at their disposal. It also includes vertical deterrence, meaning destructive yields suitable for strategic, operational, and tactical levels. This apparently would give Pakistan strategic shield, blunting India's conventional superiority. So that's basically what we have. I'd like to bring in my guest at this point, Brigadier Arun Sehgal. He has co-authored a piece on this along with Manpreet Sethi and Admiral Shikande, and he's a researcher. He's with the Delhi Policy Group, a very well-known think tank based in Delhi. So welcome, glad to have you.
Thank you.
Sir, my first question. Full spectrum deterrence, something Pakistan has been talking about for quite some time. So, exactly what is new in what they have now come out with?
Okay. Let me highlight a couple of important issues. Uh, General Kadwai's speech has come about in the backdrop of the very destabilized internal and political situation, political and economic situation in Pakistan. There are
Excuse me.
people.
Excuse me. Khalid Kidwai is was the
He
head
was
of strategic plans.
he was the earlier head of the strategic plans division. Now he's an advisor in the strategic plans division. So he has a formal role in the Pakistan Nuclear Command Authority, ARBIT, and advisory role.
Okay, great, great.
The issue is important issue to note is there are two perspectives bothering Pakistan. One is the internal situation, which is critical, as we understand in political
Yeah,
terms, economic terms, and also the way there is a great turbulence within the army itself. The second issue, which is much more this thing, is the Pakistanis are starting to believe there's a huge conventional asymmetry developing between those two countries. India is fortifying itself, building capacities, bringing in new critical technologies, the Arihant Patrol, the way we have handled China, our capacity development, and the fact that we have now become an important player in the global strategic play and wooed by almost all important powers is giving them a sense of nervousness as to India is getting too big, and it is something that is cause of concern, particularly in the political and military establishment, as the consequences of that. So, the statement of the full spectrum deterrence, which was made by Kidwai and then examined in detail in terms of vertical and horizontal deterrence, which you talked about, was
yeah,
basically to reassure. his own countrymen that the nuclear weapons remain an important and a credible capability for the security of the nation. And second, even more importantly, is to send a message to us to say that Pakistan is there, is your neighbor, you can't ignore it, and therefore, if push comes to shove, we have the capacity and the capability of dealing with you. So this is these statements are not made just for a seminar purpose. They carry a strategic messaging. So from our perspective, the strategic messaging that they are giving us is that a it is developing a large arsenal, as we are all aware. It got about 170 nuclear weapons, as per the estimates of the Federation of Atomic Scientists and others. Also, he is now also developing his triad, and the triad which is developing is both his air as well as the sea triads are essentially very highly destabilizing. They are not fully developed. The command and control is loose. We have no idea how they will function in a situation of a crisis. So this is what, when we saw this piece, and we were about at that particular point in time going for our 6 monthly nuclear track 2 dialogue with the Pakistanis, we felt that this is something which is new, and this is something which is highly destabilizing, and coming particularly in the backdrop of what is happening in Ukraine and the Russians trying to use the similar kind of language. We said that it is important that the both the people in the subcontinent and largely also people in the global world, they understand that what is happening.
Okay, is this also something that the Pakistanis are throwing up to draw the American attention?
Yes, yes, it's important. It's also important to highlight that they are trying to say that the situation in the subcontinent is unstable. There is a problem in Kashmir. They also wanting to highlight the fact that, as you notice, how they reacted to our meeting of in G20 meeting in Srinagar, and what
Yeah.
happened, the tamasha that took place at Goa, and no chance is ever left in which the Kashmir is being brought out. The fact of the matter they're trying to say is that while you cozy up with the Indians, do not forget the fact that there are two nuclear neighbors who are who have a very very strained relationship, and this is something that is potentially destabilizing.
So nothing new there really. It's kind of a lot of old wine in new bottle.
No, no, no. No. We from the perspective of strategic messaging, we have to take two three issues into account. First
Okay.
fundamental point is, apart from what he has said, though, there is a nuance which is being done, and it was done in our track two meeting by a very senior Pakistani nuclear official. The message given was that there is no place for conventional war under nuclear overhang,
Hmm.
basically discounting the fact that if there is a major crisis or a major strike in India, the the Indian perspective of having created or curated, as we have used the word, a possible deterrence reaction vis-a-vis Pakistan to such a this thing, they are trying to close that gap. So basically saying Balakot is not feasible now, because what has happened at Balakot time was that we had created under the nuclear shadow a response mechanism to deal with this cross-border terror. Al- So they want to convey a message that this is not possible, because we as a weaker nation, should we feel conventionally deterred, we will have no option but to go in for escalation, and that escalation would be nuclear. The second message is that the escalation in Indo-Pak scenario will not be uh, in terms of from conventional stages of conventional action reaction cycle and then percolating to nuclear thing. They are now trying to tell us is that, hey friends, is going to be a vertical escalation. So
Mhm.
we have there will be a vertical escalation, and vertical escalation means is that the so-called full spectrum deterrence at each level of the deterrence has a nuclear calculation figured into it. So, so point to note is that the nuclear weapons are a currency of strategic stability even at the lowest level, even at the tactical level.
Mhm.
Ideally, from Indian perspective, this is nothing new. You rightly said so. It's nothing new. But the problem is like this: is that we all have to understand that the nuclear command authority in Pakistan, unlike in India, is not civilian controlled. Civilians
Mhm.
only have a notional control. You have a prime minister who's hardly a prime minister. I mean, in the sense that he hardly escalates, hardly exercises political power. So he might be the notional head of the executive side of the nuclear command authority, but the reality of the whole thing is that the NCA is managed and controlled by the military through the SPD. So here the problem starts occurring. The problem is the misjudgment and perceptual misjudgment. Now, this is
Mhm.
where the problem is, and that's what we are trying to highlight is. So, and the second element, which is also equally important, is this that the Pakistani nuclear hawks, I will call them nuclear hawks, there are like him and another gentleman called Mr. Nadeem Karzai, etc. They have made themselves to believe that India's punitive response is a hogwash.
Mhm.
They believe that India will not have the political will to launch major strikes, and if it will not launch major strikes, or it will end up in an action reaction cycle of low yield tactical nuclear weapon kind of usage. To that extent, that creates an issue or creates a situation for Pakistan where it can be used as a conflict termination strategy through global pressure to put into ensure that it does not escalate into a large scale nuclear war, and that is provides Pakistan the intrinsic security from India, in their perception, greatly nullifying the larger uh, asymmetric potential or India's positive asymmetric capabilities or India's military capabilities. So you have to see it from those perspectives.
Do you think the Pakistanis read us right? I mean, given that it is largely military dominated and military driven, um, are they able to read us properly? We have that issue with the Chinese, you know. Do they read us in that
Oh,
sense?
okay, okay. It's a very interesting question. Let me try. See, that's a problem area. Uh, Pakistanis believe that Indian state is run by quote unquote Hindu nationalist coterie. In one case, we were also told that you have put a picture of Mahabharata in the new parliament. Pardon, mark my words. You put a picture of Mahabharata. So you want to create an India of the past
Hmm.
with all its glory, quite akin to what the Middle Kingdom syndrome of the Chinese. Please understand. It's not whether they're right or wrong. It is, you asked me a question, I'm answering the psyche.
Hmm.
The psyche is this. Psyche is as the differential grows, the feeling of isolation, feeling of not able to respond, and feeling of how much can we continue to milk the terrorism card continues is increasing. It is for this reason he is now trying to say is, boss, there, I mean, there is no simply a scope for conventional war. we if it comes through and we find ourselves in a situation of adverse situation, we will be not hesitate to use nuclear weapons. But I must tell you this, that I have done about 50 to 20 nuclear exercises, including about 5 7 with the Pakistanis. In none of those situations the Pakistanis had the gumption to use nuclear weapons. So a rational actor syndrome will tell me it is not so. But then the situation now is that India, because of the China factor and the steps we have taken at Atmanirbharta and with our recent defense cooperation engagement with the United States, France, and other people, including Israel, and our own capabilities in precision strike and long range vectors and cruise missiles and etc., is providing is creating a deep sense of insecurity in a nation whose entire ethos is anti-Indian. This is the
Yeah.
part we have to understand. The
Hmm.
ethos of Pakistan is anti-Indian. So this is where the whole problem starts coming in, and this is where the miscalculation starts coming in. That's the point I'm trying to make, sir.
And do you think we read them properly?
Ah, I think I cannot say for the political establishment, but I can say is the strategic establishment. Strategic establishment is tactically engaged with Pakistan. The establishment, in my view, do not take the larger strategic picture of what is driving the Pakistani thinking. Idea is not to get overawed. Idea is not to get challenged by what they do. The idea is to read them properly, something which we did not do even for the Chinese, and I'm
Yeah.
afraid and we should not make that same mistake twice. uh, we should be prepared with our own response mechanism to deal with any such situation which is created for us on the borders. And I can my belief is that Pakistan is strictly remains highly unsatisfied with the rapidly improving situation in Kashmir, and I'm afraid there are elements within our country also, and there are elements in Pakistan who continue to believe that Kashmir is a powder keg which can explode. My personal view is that Pakistanis largely have accepted Article 370s as a fait accompli, but will continue to raise it to raise capital, the strategic capital. Uh, the second point is at some stage in the game, the Chinese are going to come and make a play, and the Chinese need Pakistan today for multiple reasons. So and so in my view, slowly as the Pakistan economically and politically becomes weak, the Chinese will use BRI and other leverages to create a space for them from where China can execute is what I call the West Asian strategy. That is controlling of the sea lines of communications, controlling, developing an anti-excess air denial strategy by deploying systems in on the Mehran coast in various places, etc., etc., etc. Developing alternative links to the southwestern China, which remains cut off. I number of other issues, as also use the collusive support of the Pakistanis to maintain pressure on us along the line of actual control. So basically, there will be a greater degree of collusion that we need to factor in. I'm not saying it is happening. I think as an analyst, I look at the potential. I basic job. I'm basically a strategic analyst. I mean, I look at the potential rather than what is happening, because the capacities are being built up.
Yeah.
Okay, so recently there was this four country talks: Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, China.
Yeah.
Who midwifed them? China. Who wants to have a BRI? China. Why does
Yeah.
China want to have a BRI in Afghanistan? Because China wants to have a BRI in Afghanistan because it gives you straight line connectivity through the western Afghanistan to Iran. So
Hmm.
there are a number of plays in play, and therefore uh, we this issue of nuclear muscle flexing, or trying to use the nuclear card is not intrinsically only to tell us he can nuke us. The only idea is to highlight to other players also, I'm a strong nuclear power, I've got a reasonable military, I've capability, I can handle one end of this new alignment structure that is coming in.
Even though the economy is bankrupt and they are running with a begging bowl all over the world.
Yeah, but you see, whatever time, I think 50 times, whatever time it has gone, but every time they have been bailed out. And who's bailed
Yeah.
them out? This $3 billion loan came on the last minute. And you know who bailed them out. If you
Yeah.
don't know who bailed them out, I'm sure you know who bailed them out. And it was just one phone call
Yeah.
eventually, which made the thing happen. So they are aware that those phone calls will be made.
Hmm. Mhm.
To my
Interesting.
view, so the whole narrative, the I also want to talk a minute about another issue which is worrisome to us is the whole thing called the negative control, both in terms of tactical nuclear weapons on ground as well as whatever capacity he's trying to create at sea, and including air launch cruise missiles which he has created like Babur and things like that, and he's trying to mount a 15 or a 10 or 5 or 10 kT nuclear weapon or whatever. So in all these cases, what is happening is, as you are aware, unlike us, we have one big strategic plans division which controls all the three elements of the deterrent: the Army, Navy, Air Force. In their case, there are three separate strategic commands. There's an Army strategic command, there's a naval strategic command, and there's an Air Force strategic command. It's and worry from a person like me is that to execute a tactical nuclear weapon kind of a scenario, or a battlefield strike, at some stage the control has to be delegated to the frontline commanders, and that is where the problem occurs. And frontline commanders can be rogue. He may misread the battle. He may
Yeah.
say, I'm under threat. He will fire, etc. etc. The problem which world is currently, sir, is dealing with the fact is, what are the post-use narrative and escalation management after the nuclear weapon has been used in the year 2023 and beyond. People are absolutely unclear. United States is unclear. The Russians are unclear. Nobody is clear. Nobody says I can manage escalation. No, nobody's clear. Nobody's clear. We have no idea what kind of pressure will the political establishment be. And because you have initiated a strike, the other side will retaliate. Then the question comes is, what kind of a level of retaliation the second strike of the other guy is going to be. So this is a very very complex issue, and people are not understanding it. And added to that is the technological AI, advanced command control systems, rapid communications, decision making time, decision loop is getting shorter and shorter. This is going to cause itself into another problem area. So we are seeing a situation which we need to study, examine, prepare ourselves with various contingencies. I'm not saying Pakistan. What Pakistan has said, nothing new in
Yeah.
essentially speaking, but is reiteration under circumstances which to me needs to be taken seriously. And that is why we thought that it is important for both this to bring out this piece in an international magazine, particularly in the United States, where there are people who take, I mean, who read it and understand what kind of a genie that exists in the region and which has to be capped.
Interesting. This horizontal and vertical expansion that the Pakis talk of, You see this being driven by the Chinese? Are they the ones who are? And we know in the past they've transferred all kinds of missiles and stuff to the Pakistanis. You
Okay.
expect they will be the ones,
Let me answer that question. This is an interesting question. See, sir, when you launch a Shaheen, which is 2750 kilometer launch, that has to be controlled at some stage. It has to be fed with
Mm,
some degree of digital code and gyro coordinates. What the Chinese have given to Pakistan is the full access to operational BIDO, their satellite systems, which provide them with the same degree of advanced uh, uh, coordinates for striking targets with a reasonable degree of precision.
mhm,
And second thing, what they have also done is they have given them precision strike capability. So, to if Shaheen 3 can be targeted to launch to target an very important V and VP of ours with a 5 to 10 meter accuracy, then we are looking at a very different kind of a scenario. So
mm, yeah,
so 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 what happens is like this movie Oppenheimer is coming. I was in Sandia for 3 months, so I've done a lot of work over there on these
mm,
basically issues. So bottom line basically is this, that people tend to be overconfident when they believe they have highly operationally functional systems, and then they start taking chances, and that's where
mm,
the problem comes. Another area which is bothering Pakistanis from our side is ballistic missile defense. They believe that the ballistic missile defense shield will become so strong over a period of time that Indian core areas or critical infrastructure, strategic critical infrastructure, will re- come will be outside their strike zones. And the last point I like to highlight is that there's a new element which is being introduced in the nuclear world, and that is punitive first strikes using conventional precision guided systems. So, so I mean, let me take a scenario. If I see a couple of batteries of NASA's deployed somewhere or the other, and I pick them up, and we are now getting a great degree of ISR, as you know, with all this
yeah.
MBQ lines and all this nonsense. So technically, his concern is, can India launch a punitive non-nuclear conventional strike and take these out?
Mhm,
So the situation is becoming a little more difficult and more to remain as a simple linear equation. It's becoming
mhm.
in a multi-dimensional kind of a situation.
I mean,
So
his insecurities are running very, very deep,
very
and
deep. So that
element
is
of
the worst
paranoia,
part.
perhaps. Element of
We need
paranoia
to
there also.
paranoia. There is, at least I saw that firsthand. I can
Uh-huh.
say.
So last question, sir. This
Okay.
doctrine of ours of massive retaliation, whether it's a tactical nuclear strike or something bigger than that, does that still hold or should it be changed?
No, no. I think our doctrine of massive retaliation is a very credible doctrine. So it puts the onus of understanding and India's reaction on the guy who wants to take the first step. India is very clear that we will retaliate. A punitive strike. What is a punitive strike? That will our we will decide what is a punitive strike. What is the level of the punitive strike? We will decide what is the level of the punitive strike. What other things we want to do is we will do. The whole idea is in this doctrine basically is this, that we will not initiate the first step of this thing. For us, nuclear weapons are a political weapon. They are not for war fighting, they are for deterring. So for us, the punitive strike doctrine is upholding India's deterrence narrative. We believe that that is an important part, but We are not clarifying, not even need to clarify what does punitive mean in terms of numbers, quantity, quality, etc., etc. That's the choice which the political and the executive branches of our two heads of our nuclear command authority will do. Political committee and executive committee, they will decide. They will decide as to what is to be done. But it will not be. It will. But as far as Pakistan is concerned, so in fact, I was told by somebody over there that he said, "You keep saying you will launch punitive strike. You think don't seem to be very sure of it." I said, I said, with due apologies, sir, let me assure you, we are absolutely clear. And if you want to try us out, choice is yours. Don't take us down that road. We don't want to go down that road. We certainly don't want to go down. We are a peaceful people. We don't want to fight. We don't. But the question is, don't threaten us with the full spectrum deterrence and say that I can fight at three levels simultaneously. That's to I said that has never happened. That will not happen. And all these things are merely exercises in showmanship and brinkmanship. That's it.
And one would also presume, given your own experience, that in all the war games you have taken part in with the Pakistanis, the nuclear option has never been resorted to.
Yes, it has not been resorted to, but there was one war game where we did take out a couple of Nasers and
Uh-huh.
with warheads intact, and
I
those were
see.
captured. See, you can't have 60 kilometers range, and we can now we have capacity. We can easily go 60 kilometers jumping with no distance for our sensors and our capability. We can take them out in one flash. I mean, if we want to,
Yeah.
or if we don't have the capabilities, we must develop those capabilities. But the point at issue is this: the point at issue is this that what we are trying to say is that our punitive response strategy is fundamental to our doctrine. Don't try us out.
And also assuming we know where all their nukes are.
Everybody thinks everybody knows his nukes are, but I don't think everybody knows how much is where. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. But with the kind of ISR capability we are developing and kind of system that we are putting up in the sky, uh, if there is an unusual activity, we should be able to pick up. But in this area, I must tell you through your listeners is we have a lot of work to go of integrating our sensors. We have not integrated our sensors completely. We are working very hard on it. We done got a lot of successes, but we need to work more to integrate our sensors. So that's an important. And another issue is our strategic partners. They provide us with credible information. So the whole idea is that every player in the game is invested in preventing nuclear escalation. So that's the point which we need to look at.
Yeah. That's a positive thought. Thank God.
Yes. Yes.
Brigadier, great talking to you. Very interesting. And
Thank you.
let's see where this goes forward if we get more ideas from across the border. I presume that insecurity is driving them to all kinds of explore other origins and other territories.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Great talking to
Thank you.
you.
Thank you. Great. Thank you. God bless.
And for those of you who joined us on this conversation, thank you for subscribing to our YouTube channel. Follow us on social media, Twitter. Thank you very much. Good night.